everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Training. I hope you're having a fantastic week. As always,
we are live from Austin, Texas, right here at Insurance Syndicate headquarters, and man, we have a great show for you.
Hey, there we go again. So I had a feeling that might kick off that way because we're having a couple of little tech issues, but it is great to be here. Thanks for tuning in for Tuesday Training. It is 9 a.m., and that's what we do here on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. as we boot up this little show where we like to chat with you and hopefully give you some actionable content that you can use, put in your business, maybe put in your life, right, and improve and grow and do some things now. So that is definitely what we're going to do. We've got quite a bit of news that I want to run through. So we'll see how some of that goes. A couple of stories. And my heart, as I was saying before that intro video kicked off, it goes out to all of those folks out there in the face of Hurricane Milton. Like I said, I've got tons of friends, coworkers, referral partners, clients. I've got family out there. So you guys are all very heavy on my mind right now because this thing is barreling right towards you. And it strikes me as a little ironic that we're right here at AEP and this thing is headed straight for Tampa, which is pretty much the Medicare wonderland out there. It is the mecca of everything that is Medicare, it seems like. I mean, there are a lot of agencies. There's FMOs right in the Tampa area. I mean, Clearwater, you got AmeriLife. I think Wakely TPA is still out there. WellCare is right there in Tampa, Clearwater. So they're right in the face of this thing, man. So we're praying for it. If you're trying to get somewhere safe, please get there quick. If you were one of those folks hunkering down in the face of this thing, like my buddy Dave Williams, I saw your post this morning that said you were just buckled down and going to ride this thing out, man. Again, my thoughts and prayers are with you. Stay safe in this time, please. Also, something else that is kind of heavy on my mind. Let me share my screen with you guys real quick. Bear with me 1 second, please. So some of you guys may have remembered a while back, we did a show, Joe and I did. Whoops. Hey, Lily, can you do me a solid? Can you add that screen share that I did to the stage? You'll see it at the bottom. I've got it ready to go, but it won't let me present it. So if you can click that for me and push it up on stage, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Perfect. So you guys may have remembered a Winning on Wednesday episode that Joe and I did a while back with one of our buddies, Cedric Freeman. You may also know Cedric yourself. He is the head videographer. And I'm sure he does a whole host of other things over there than just hold a camera. He is definitely the genius behind the camera over at Bobby Brock Insurance. Incredible guy. He has unfortunately been in a pretty serious motorcycle accident. I don't know all of the details of it, not life-threatening injuries, but some pretty serious injuries. My understanding is that yesterday he went through about a 9-hour surgery and is in quite a bit of pain. And while he is doing okay overall, there's a lot of expenses going on with this because the understanding that I have is that he is basically going to be out of work for at least 3 months. He is going to need to be pretty much home cared and it sounds like probably confined to maybe a wheelchair or probably even a bed and have people take care of him. So he's in rough shape, just to be flat honest. So they do have a GoFundMe started for him. They're not looking for a ton of cash. They're trying to raise 10 grand to help him with expenses. They've already got, says right there, 5670. So if you want to get out there and do it, you'll see this in the group. My good buddy Justin Brock posted this in the group. So you can find it right in the syndicate. If you want to throw them, $20, $100, whatever it is in your heart that you can, please support our friend Sed, man. He's a good dude. He's got a great family as a single dad, and he is in a bit of a tough spot. So look for that post in the group. The next thing that I want to dive into before we get into some news, obviously, this show is always brought to you by my good friend Eric Fierro and with the CRM DFY, which means done for you. It is one of the best CRMs out there, in my opinion, for agents in the insurance space. I use it all the time. I've been working with that platform for probably about 2.5 years now. And I had come from a previous platform that was useful, but it didn't have everything DFY had. It didn't have all of the pre-built workflows that can help me cultivate leads, nurture leads. The thing is pretty much fully built right out of the box for the insurance agent, especially the Medicare agent, ACA agent, there are definitely some serious ACA custom workflows in there that you can utilize. Webinar workflows, all kinds of seminar workflows in there that I've helped him build. And for $97 a month, you can get access to all of it. All the automations, all the workflows, all the tools. I was in there working on some stuff today. I am not the most IT savvy guy. I'm pretty good and I'm getting better, but I'm not the super tech geek like some of you guys out there. And I needed to use their chat help to help me figure out this calendaring issue I was having. Dude, within about 5 minutes, they were on the chat with me, live help, walked me right through it, fixed it, boom. Now we got a perfect calendaring system and it's dope. So if you are an agent out there that for some reason doesn't have a CRM, you're looking for a good CRM that will give you the ability to create landing pages and funnels, give you the ability to create excellent calendaring options with automations for appointment reminders, set appointments. It's got AI plugins that you can have an AI appointment bot booking the appointments for you. If you're looking for something like all of that, $97 a month, check out DFY. It's easily one of the best systems out there. I love it to death. And then I want to jump into some news. Lily, if you could do me a favor and plug that screen share back up on stage for me, I'd appreciate it. So recently, Kaiser Family Foundation, you guys know I talk about Kaiser quite a bit. They rolled out a public opinion poll on prescription drugs and their prices. And this has certainly been a hot topic for a while in the Medicare space, right? Everybody's been talking about prescription drugs, the Inflation Reduction Act, the $35 insulin, the $2,000 cap, the 12-month payment program. All of that stuff has been very hotly contested in a lot of ways, and certainly rotating around news articles. And I've been talking about it for at least a year now, if not longer. But Kaiser put out a really good poll. It's got some great information in it. And I want to run through some of it with you because I think this is very important to understand what some of your clients are thinking and going through when it comes to prescription drugs. So this is an excellent poll. So figure one says pretty simply that 6 in 10 adults currently take at least one prescription. I don't know if that's surprising. And 1/4 of them, 25%, say that they take 4 or more prescriptions. So most of our clients, as we know, in the Medicare space, most of them are taking some prescriptions. It's rare that we come across that person that doesn't. If you're in the T65 space, you may run across healthier people more regularly or more frequently like we do that aren't taking any scripts at all yet. Or maybe they are only taking that one little statin or lisinopril or something, whatever. But most of them are, and certainly a good percentage of them, 25% are taking 4 or more. Moving on down, it says that 6 in 10 people say that prescription drugs developed over the last 20 years have made the lives of people in the U.S. better. I thought that was an interesting stat, but that's 60% of them. Actually, 63% say that prescription drugs have helped us. 15% say, 21% actually say we're worse. We are worse off. Moving along, about 8 in 10 across parties. So they even did like some bipartisan stuff on this, or partisan stuff, I should say. But it says about 8 in 10 across all parties say drug company profits are a major contributing factor to prescription drug costs. No shit. So you can see that it's a vast majority. 83% of the total people believe that pharmaceutical companies, their profits are a major contributing factor. And I would say that is absolutely true and definitely one of the big issues. I mean, the proof of it is just look at the advertising. I mean, the amount of advertising money they spend tells you right there they're making lots of money. Number 4, majorities are worried about affording prescription drug costs, with a larger shares of Black, Hispanic adults and uninsured adults reporting concern. So right here, this little black part of the graph is people that are very worried, right? So on average, you're looking at, roughly around 30% of folks are very worried. And at the bottom, they even have it based on insurance status. 26% of people under age 65. That's a pretty good chunk of folks under age 65 that have insurance and are still saying that they are very worried about their prescription drug cost. Uninsured, 43% of people under age 65 that are uninsured are concerned about their cost, right? Blue graph is somewhat worried. Green graph, not too worried. And then your final dark green, not worried at all. So, I mean, the vast majority of folks, 3/4 of them basically, are at least a little bit worried about, if they're going to be able to afford their scripts. Moving along, 1/4 of adults have difficulty affording prescription drugs, including the larger shares of those who take more medications. That seems, kind of obvious. I had a gentleman in my office yesterday, as a matter of fact, that was extremely happy with some of the news I was able to give him. He takes, maybe about 10, maybe 12, but about 10 prescriptions. And he was one of those people that, is probably spending about $400 to $500 a month on prescriptions, because he was definitely one of the people dealing with the donut hole. And he now is, as we all know, is going to be capped at $2,000. He's not taking any insulin. Most of his issues rely around heart and asthma. We know that those things, like Trelegy, was one of the prescriptions that he has. If you're not familiar with the Trelegy inhaler, it's one of the most expensive ones out there because it's got 3 drugs all in one inhaler. So it's super pricey. But he's basically going to have a pretty fat bill for 3 months, and then he pays $0 the rest of the year. So he's one of those people that, even though I know he won't make use of the 12-month payment program, he could. Like, he's that target audience that they're talking about, because all of his expenses, his $2,000, are close to it, not quite. He ends up spending, it was right around $1,600. Not even that much, actually. I'm sorry. It's probably around $1,400 at the pharmacy. And then he has like an $88 premium, as I remember, that he's going to end up with. So he'll, spend right at his $2,000 in total. Or actually, I think about $2,400 with the premium and everything on top of it. But he's making out like gangbusters, right? He was spending about $6,000, close to $6,000 last year, maybe $5,000 or so. And now he's going to get that more than cut in half, which is awesome, because now he can afford more insurance, so we can take even better care of him. But going back to this, right? 1/4 of adults have difficulty affording their prescriptions. 25% of your clients or basically say they cannot afford their prescriptions. And certainly the majority of those folks are taking a lot of medication. And I know, I'm talking about this guy that I spoke with yesterday. He's been a longtime client of mine, and he's doing very well, or he will be doing much more affordable on his scripts. But what I was saying is he's that ideal client because most of his money's in those first 3 months. So he's what they're talking about with that 12-month payment program. I know he won't take advantage of it because he doesn't necessarily need it. But that's kind of their target model. But about 3 in 10 say they haven't taken their medicine as prescribed due to cost. This is the part that's scary to me. Like 30% of the people that are polled in this, and I'm not sure how many people are polled in this. I didn't look at the actual tracking data, but they show it right here that you can look it up. But it says that about 30% say that they have not taken their meds as prescribed due to cost. And I know that was a big part of getting the $35 insulin taken care of, because you had people that were rationing their insulin, right? They're taking their life in their own hands, playing doctor when they shouldn't be. Pretty terrible, right? I mean, that's the thing that freaks me out. So I'm super happy about some of these opportunities that these people are going to get. I know a lot of the information, if I'll just say that, a lot of the information or talk about the Inflation Reduction Act has been very negative in a lot of ways, right? Because people have looked at it from the concept of the restrictions that it's creating, the inflated cost that it's creating for the insurance companies, making it tougher for them to do their jobs and maintain profitability. And certainly there's a large, arguably larger group of people that are spending more money because of the increase in premiums compared to what they were spending. Because you definitely have clients that are out there taking just a few minor generics, or maybe they're taking one tier 2 or tier 3 drug, and they're seeing inflated cost. But people like my guy Curtis that came in yesterday are getting hooked up, and I can appreciate it definitely when I look at this specific graph saying that 30% are basically rationing their meds. Not good. Number 7, majorities across partisanship say there is not enough government regulation. How do you like to hear that? As an insurance agent, I'm sure that is not music to your ears. That the majorities across partisanship say there's not enough government regulation when it comes to limiting the price of prescription drugs. So, where's that? I'm going to say, where's that regulation aimed at? If it's aimed at let's go back up to, what was it, figure 4, about or figure 3 about the drug companies and their profits and the pharmaceutical benefit manufacturers, if that regulation is aimed there, I'm all on board with it. But if you're going to target it back to the insurance carriers as much or more, and you're going to target it back to the healthier folks and penalize them to help take care of the unhealthy folks, I'm not necessarily for that type of regulation. So I'm definitely all about limiting the price of scripts, but we need to, in my opinion, we need to do that more at the manufacturer and distribution level, well above the insurance carrier before they get a hold of it. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that I can't remember specifically which one. I think maybe it was the Optum RX. I forget now, but there's an article in the Insurance Syndicate that I posted about a PBM getting sued for that. So for basically price fixing and inflating price within their own vertical to increase profits. Like that's the kind of bullshit that needs to go away. Figure 8, before the Inflation Reduction Act, there was broad support to many different approaches to lowering drug cost. So, and obviously that makes sense. Like everybody, I can't think of anybody except, the CEOs of some of, maybe Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson or whoever, Procter & Gamble, whatever it is. They're probably not in favor of it, but everybody else is in favor of bringing down the prescription drug costs. And this goes through some of the different methods or approaches that they thought. Like the top one's great. Like, hey, let's make it easier for generic drugs to come out to market, right? Or let's limit how much drug companies can increase the price of prescription drugs each year so that it's no more than the rate of inflation. So there's allowing Americans to buy more drugs imported from Canada, increasing the tax on drug companies that refuse to negotiate on drug pricing, right? Some of those I'd definitely be behind. The bottom one is allowing Medicare to exclude more drugs. 25% of people got on board for that. Obviously, that is not the majority. Most people weren't happy about that one. Most people wanted to limit the cost through going after the pharmaceutical benefit manufacturers, et cetera, benefit managers and the manufacturers, et cetera. So moving along, voters age 65 and older are more likely to know that federal law caps the cost of insulin to people with Medicare. So your total voters, only 40% of the people are aware that Medicare has a $35 cap on insulin. Voters age 65 and older, about 61% are aware. So that still means, 39% of your customers, if you're in the Medicare space like me, they got no idea that there's a cap on insulin. Maybe they're not taking insulin, probably a pretty good reason why. But, the last stats that I looked at, by the time we get to the year 2030, I want to say 40, I think it was 44 or maybe it was 48% were projected to be diabetic by the time we get to 2030. So more people are going to get concerned about it. Total voters, 35% are aware that the federal government requires the federal government to negotiate the price of drugs. Not as many people quite aware of that, right? Certainly penalties. So awareness on Inflation Reduction Act and what it does for insulin costs is interesting. Not as many people are aware of that, which is nuts because I live in an echo chamber, of course, because all I do is Medicare. So I hear about it all the time. Figure 10, majorities across partisanship support a portion of the Inflation Reduction Act that authorizes the government to negotiate the price of prescription drugs. Absolutely. You can see that's huge support for that. And I definitely agree. But again, those negotiations, we got to make sure that type of stuff is always aimed at the manufacturers and the distributors above the insurance carrier and the clients that are out there. But yeah, you can see it as high as 96% of Democrats, 88% of total voters, 83% of Republicans all support price negotiations. And then finally, majority of voters across partisanship support proposals to expand the Inflation Reduction Act provisions beyond those people with Medicare. So again, another majority, right? When we're looking at the $35 insulin cost, total voters, you got 77% of people are all behind that. Absolutely, right? Expanding the $2,000 cap, 70% of people, 69% technically, all on board with that. I would think so. I can't imagine that too many people are excited about having to spend more money there. The problem comes in again. What we're seeing is that for a lot of folks that these benefits don't apply to, they're seeing much higher premiums, and that's really been everybody's beef, right? So again, it's one of those situations where a large majority on the program is helping out a small majority that really needs the benefit. But I am happy. I can't argue with the client that came in yesterday and was super ecstatic when he saw how much money I was going to be able to help him out with by switching up his drug plan, right? This is a Medicare supplement client. He's got a standalone drug plan. He was paying, like I said, he was paying about $5,000 a year. And now with the caps, and he's not even on insulin, he's on, like I said, asthma and heart meds. He is going to be saving some serious cash. So moving along. I got quite a bit of news I want to run through with you guys today. It's going to be a pretty heavy news show. But Humana's Medicare Advantage dilemma worsens amid precipitous drop in their star ratings. And we've already seen, like I've posted several articles regarding Humana, and I'm not here to bag on Humana. I'm just putting out the news. That's all I'm doing. We've already seen information that they are going to lose about 560,000 members. We've already seen information that their stock price is dropping. So, here's some more info talking about they're probably going to see star ratings drops as well. So it goes now. It says only 25% of Humana members will be in plans with quality ratings above 4 stars, down from 94%. Like, that's a huge difference. 94% of Humana members this year were in a plan that had a quality star rating at 4 stars or more, right? So out of every 100 Humana members, 94 of them were enrolled in a plan that was at least 4 stars. But in 2025, the projection is only 25% of total Humana members will be in a plan that's 4 stars or more. So this is another carrier that is struggling to maintain the higher star ratings. Why is that super important? Other than the quality of the product and the value it delivers to your client, it's hard on the insurance company because the star ratings is what dictates their bonuses, right? And their quality outcomes that they can utilize to maintain profitability, grow their product, provide better benefits to clients, get bigger networks, expand drug formularies. Like, they need that money to grow their product properly, to take care of people properly. So these star ratings, the new methods, if you will, that they're calculating star ratings, it's got people up in arms. And we already know Scan sued them, right? And won. Anthem has sued them. I just put out an article that I'll hit in a second. United Healthcare has now sued them over star ratings. And then you have Humana here saying that, man, we're going to struggle too. And we're going to go from 94% of our people being on 4-star or better plans now to only 25% of our members being on 4-star or better plans. So that's a huge loss for the member, right? And that's an even more massive loss for Humana, which is ultimately, and we all saw this, ultimately, the beneficiaries are the ones that are going to suffer. And I put this one in the, and I just mentioned it, right? But here we go. United Healthcare sues CMS over Medicare Advantage star ratings. I'm not going to jump through this whole thing, but basically it says the complaint filed in a Texas district court by United Health MA plans in a variety of states accused the CMS, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, of downgrading their stars based on an arbitrary, capricious, and unlawful assessment of how a joint call center handled a single call that lasted less than 10 minutes. The plans allege they could lose millions of dollars if customers depart due to lower scores. Now I'm really curious about that 10-minute call. We will have to find some more information about that, but I am not going to drag through this article right now. Well, maybe I will for a second, but it's not jumping out at me. But that is in the group as well. Another one here, boom. I mean, there's a ton of this out today. United Healthcare reports calls out a policy shifting to value-based care. This is something I've also been talking about a lot, man. The healthcare industry, especially the Medicare space, is moving to value-based care more and more every year, right? If you've ever heard the talk that I've done at Medicare Con, I think it was the 3rd Medicare Con, wasn't it? Yeah, the Medicare Con 3 in Vegas. I gave a talk on what I called the future of Medicare. I've given it a couple of times as CE credits at NABIP events, and I gave that talk at the second six-figure Medicare Summit, as I remember. Yeah, second one. But I talked about how if you look at Medicare legislation, Medicare reform legislation dating back to, and I'm going off of memory at the moment, but I want to say 94, might be 91, but in the early 90s, if you go back to Medicare legislation back in the 90s, you will see them creating opportunities for value-based care, creating incentivized payment method systems for the doctors. That's where value-based care came from. They have been working on it easily since the 90s. I think Blue Cross was the first carrier to experiment with value-based care, or I should say incentivized doctor payment programs in an 04 practice that they did that got great reviews, and hence value-based care continues to grow. So when I say that there is an acceleration in the shift to value-based care, United Healthcare is recognizing it as well, and they put out a report that kind of goes over it as well. So I haven't put this in the group, but I'll get this article in the group as well. You can check it out, how value-based care is growing, how carriers are recognizing it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe it is a way of the future. I think ultimately we are all going to end up in a I'm going to call it a universal healthcare model, but it's not really going to be universal healthcare, truthfully. But it will be to some extent, and then built into a value-based care model. So moving along, I got a couple more items I want to run with you guys. I love calling out fraud, and here we go. We got 7, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 executives charged with defrauding Medicare, Medicaid of $40 million using Colorado labs. Man, I hope they get that money back. Because if you think about all the expenses that Medicare has and all the efforts that they go to try to reduce Medicare costs, I mean, that was the big part of the Inflation Reduction Act. And one reason why some of us are pissed off about it, because it was sold to us as a way to decrease the cost of Medicare. It's certainly not doing it first year, right? It is increasing the cost of Medicare because they had to rearrange their subsidy for the drug plans that is going to cost, estimated maybe $37 billion first year. But a lot of reports are saying that over time, it will save Medicare tons of money. So that will remain to be seen. But I wish that something better they could do about some of the fraud that is out there that is hitting Medicare so hard. Because here's $40 million from 7 guys, and it's always the same bullshit. It's testing. They're doing genetic testing, cancer screening testing, COVID testing, the durable medical equipment. Like, it all falls in that same space. I'd love to know what is lacking there that allows for this rampant level of fraud. Because if you've watched my show, this is the 94th episode. If you watch this show much at all, you know that there's a ton of fraud. And I point it out pretty often because I don't know what the answer is. I'm not a lawmaker, right, or a policer of any sort. But if there's got to be a way that we can tighten that up and get a handle on the amount of fraud that is out there. But here we go. We got Ronald King, Victor Reuter, Tina Wellman, Adam Shore, Robert O'Sullivan, John Gattaro, and Brad Edson. These 7 executives are, right? Basically, again, genetic testing. They're pushing out genetic testing and creating kickbacks, bribes to sell unnecessary genetic testing to the beneficiaries, right? And then they're billing it to Medicare, probably with false billing codes, etc. It's garbage, and I hope that they clean these guys out and get their $40 million back, because we need it. And speaking of, right, I was just saying that a lot of us have been complaining about the Inflation Reduction Act because we believe it is costing Medicare more. Here's an article from Weill Cornell Medicine. I feel like this is probably going to be an excellent viewpoint. And it says, hey, revising Medicare Part D prescription drug policy could save billions. And it says removing protected class regulation from Medicare prescription drug policies could greatly reduce the U.S. prescription drug spending. This could have potentially saved $47 billion between 2011 and 2019, according to these medicine researchers. I'm going to get this in the group as well. I haven't had a chance to go through this one yet because we were dealing with some of the tech issues, but basically they are talking, my understanding and scanning it, is they're looking at the protected classes of different types of drugs and the rebate levels, right? This is what I like about this. This isn't sitting there necessarily hyping up the Inflation Reduction Act and saying, hey, that revision of the Medicare Part D prescription drug program is saving billions and giving their opinion. They're saying, no, man, if you go after these protected classes of drugs and drug purchasers and go after the rebates that they're doing, that is where you can save billions of dollars. But they're not doing it, right? They're going after the insurance companies instead, which is what seems to be happening. So there it is. Another one. And this would be contrary to many of your popular beliefs based on the actions that we've seen so far, right? Because we've currently seen footprint reductions, service area reductions, crosswalks, plan exits, all kinds of madness going on, and supplemental benefit reductions, premiums going up, drugs shrinking, like everything that we've seen so far, at least from my perspective, would be very counterintuitive to the headline here that says Medicare Advantage market expects to grow in 2025 despite big changes from insurers. And it says next year's Medicare Advantage market will be two things at once: remarkably stable broadly, but rife with changes under the surface. Health insurance companies will still offer older adults a lot of plan choices with low or completely free premiums. That's why the federal government expects enrollment in the $500 billion Medicare Advantage program to grow once again in 2025, a stark contrast from insurers' cries that modest payment reforms, I don't know about modest, would damage them and seniors' options. So I'll get this in the group as well. You guys can check that one out. And then again, another one, I'm just going to keep rolling here. CMS put this out. A value-based care spotlight. So again, here's an example of the acceleration of value-based care. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I believe in value-based care. I'm partners with Savita. We refer clients to them all the time, right? I think value-based care and I would dare say direct primary care are major disruptions or complementary providers within the total healthcare program. And I definitely think it's going to start in the Medicare space, which is where they've really pushed it. So this is a great article, man. If you are out there, if you're a Medicare agent or an agent in the Medicare space, I should say, because there is no such thing as a Medicare agent, and you're not familiar with value-based care, man, you need to get familiar. You need to get familiar. It has been growing extremely rapidly over the last decade. We already saw Oak Street, probably the fastest growing one, or arguably very close to it, sell out to CVS for a very, very, very large sum. And their explosion of locations, I want to say it went from like 20 to 150 something locations in a period of just a couple of years. So very, very quick growth. We're seeing more companies come out there. Like I said, I work with a group called Savita that is here locally and in Houston and in Phoenix and in Florida, where I work with some of their locations. Excellent, excellent group, right? The whole idea behind value-based care is if we incentivize the doctors by providing value over volume, then we can increase the value of our healthcare. Fairly simple process. And that's what I was saying earlier. If you go back to the 90s, you will find Medicare reform that talks about creating incentivized payment programs for doctors so that if they actually improve your health, they make more money instead of just making the nurse talk to you for 40 minutes and then the doctor sees you for 5, reads a chart, writes you a prescription and sends you home. Like, that's bullshit healthcare. That's volume-based healthcare, which is what we're all tired of. We want value-based healthcare, right? I talk to these people that are on direct primary care in the underage market, and they absolutely love it because they get to talk to their doctor for 30, 45 minutes, an hour in a setting to really look at some of their ailments, some of their issues, and give them proper care, proper guidance. Same thing is going on in value-based care, man. And if you are an agent out there in the Medicare space, if you've got, and I know you have value-based care clinics in your area, right? You got WellMed, right? There's another one. There's Savita, Oak Street, There's bunches of them. So just depending on the area that you live in, you will find some. Partner with them, man. Talk to them. Get to know them, and they can help you refer clients. One of the things I love about the Savita group that I'm working with is, number one, they focus on the same market I do, the Medicare space that is generally Latino, right? I hang out in the Hispanic market, the Spanish language market. They support that as well, and they take the majority of the Medicare Advantage plans that I work with. Also, the big thing behind them is they protect your agent of record. So if they're working with the client and they feel like, hey, this client might be, we could better treat this client on Humana versus United Healthcare or whatever this case may be, and they might tell that client that, hey, let's go back to your agent, work with them and see what we can do so we can give you these other treatments that we need to work on. And they'll make sure that you are maintained as AOR on that. They won't let other people come in there and snipe that business. A couple more things real quick, and then we'll get into a final message for the day. But right here, again, Kaiser Family Foundation says Medicare Part D premiums are increasing for many, but not all standalone plans in 2025, reflecting effects of the new premium stabilization demonstration. Again, this is an article I haven't had a chance to dive into because I just found it right before we got on, but I'm going to get this one in the group and I'll probably come back to it. But it is going to go through a lot of your different premiums for your different drug plans that are out there. We already know that those that are participating, right, in the premium stabilization model, that they're capped at increasing their premium no more than $35. Well, here's all of your carriers that are doing it at $35, right? There's an example of those, and you see some other ones. So we see some reductions in there as well in some areas. Massive reduction here, apparently. But this was, I'm just going to say it. This one is a little bit misleading, the SilverScript Choice one. Yeah, sure, that plan is getting reduced, but you're going from 3 plans to 1 plan. Like, I feel like everybody with SilverScript is kind of getting hosed there because these people that are on the high dollar plan, I don't know if that's going to be a better thing for them to move to that low dollar plan. Is going to give them the right benefits to cover their drugs. And then you got the people that are on the $7 plan that we were all using to dodge penalties, and now they're paying $53. So there's where a lot of your argument lies, is down at that bottom section. There's a good cross section of your premiums. I'll get that in the group. Pretty simple. We already know that, if you're out there and you've been selling the WellCare drug product, not only are you not getting paid for it anymore, but then their 50-cent plan didn't go higher. In a lot of areas, it's still 50 cents at even zero. So there is quite a bit of news for you guys, man. Again, I appreciate y'all tuning in. This is when Lily helped me tee up this episode today. I was like, oh, episode 94. I was like, damn, we're closing on 100 episodes. And I can't thank y'all enough for helping support the show and tuning in. I hope over the 94 episodes so far that we provided some good value for you guys. I know we've had some great guests. But this week, and this was a post that I made in the group also. You guys may have remember seeing it. I was talking a little bit about this book by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's a short little book. Not very lengthy at all. It's basically 2 of his published essays, one entitled Compensation, one entitled Self-Reliance. You can find this on Amazon for like $8.50. Just look up Ralph Waldo Emerson, Compensation, Self-Reliance. I got that for everybody in the office just because I thought it was a good read, right? We're not doing a book club. We're not like testing each other on our book knowledge, but we do self-development, professional development, self-development meetings every week, twice a week, every Monday, every Friday from 8 to 9. We go over our short-term targets, some of the things we're trying to accomplish. We grade ourselves as well on how we did the previous week, right? So we bring accountability into those meetings as well. And then we generally try to bring about some topic that we can talk about, whether it's something on sales skills, learning to overcome certain objections, learning how to be better at this or that. Like it's, something that we can do to be better at what we do as insurance agents, right? As teachers, as coaches, as leaders, mentors, salespeople, whatever it might be. So I want to go over some stuff with you guys on self-reliance that basically comes down to about 4 points. But the primary thing about self-reliance that I like so much, I grew up Generation X, right? And I was literally, I was that kid with the string around his neck and the key. And just walk to the bus stop, right? in most, not all situations, depends on which school I was going to, but a lot of times, because both my parents worked, sometimes both of my parents were already gone, and I had to make sure I was up, make sure that I was showered or whatever, and I had my books and I had my lunch money, and I went to walk to the bus stop, right? And then after the bus stop, I was the first one to get home. Nobody was home. I'm all by myself. I was the true latchkey kid. So I learned a pretty high level of self-reliance by force, I guess you could say, right? A lot of times I cooked for myself because I was hungry, or provide for myself, whatever it might be. I mean, certainly my parents gave me all the resources. I'm not trying to say that my parents didn't provide for me by any means. They put all the resources together, and they kind of, allowed me to utilize those resources to the best of my ability to take care of myself. So I was extremely learned a good level of self-reliance. But the main reason that I wanted to talk about it in our group, in our meeting the other day, and certainly with you guys a little bit more, because I know a lot of you are either already agency owners that have a team, that you're growing a team, or maybe you're an aspiring agency owner or team builder. And regardless of what level you're at, self-reliance is huge, because the fact remains that if you cannot learn to lead yourself, you can never lead a team. They're not going to follow you, right? They're either going to run over you or they're going to abandon you. So you have to understand that, number one, you have to learn to lead yourself. My wife is an amazing example at leading herself. I've met very few people in my life that have the level of self-discipline she has when it comes to leading herself through her goals, through the growth, through her direction for what she's trying to accomplish. And I'm going to go through 4 things with you guys that I believe kind of sum up self-reliance in a nutshell. Like the 4 things that you really got to focus on. If you can do these 4 things, you can become a master of self-reliance, which will be great. And then again, the reason why we brought up in the meeting is because we believe that we're not just insurance agents here. Like Joe and I, the culture that we're trying to grow is that we are growing leaders in this office, right? And again, if you can't lead yourself first, you'll never lead anyone else. And one of the things, there was a quote that I even threw in on this meeting. I've studied a lot of Eastern philosophy. If some of y'all know me, I practice Kung Fu, and I've been in martial arts for a long time. And there was a quote, if you will, that I picked up a long time ago that is one of my favorites. And the quote is, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This was, I believe it was quoted as Buddha saying, or maybe it was Siddhartha or whoever, but Eastern philosophy stuff. But it says, "Be a lamp unto yourself," which means learn to guide yourself, right? Create that self-reliance. And I think that's a beautiful quote to kick it off. But number one, the first thing you have to do is you have to assume responsibility. You got to assume responsibility for yourself is what I'm talking about. You have to assume that, hey, I'm responsible for me. You have to take control of yourself, right? And assume that responsibility. I'm not saying assume in as you make an assumption like, hey, when you assume things, you make an ass out of you and me. I mean, take responsibility is truly what's probably even better than assume responsibility there. Take responsibility, right? I talk about this a lot in the form of ownership. Are you taking ownership of yourself? Are you taking ownership of the job at hand? All right. And this is especially true if you're a team member, right? And maybe you're working with the agency owner. Maybe you're not the agency owner, right? But you're the owner of your distribution. If you take that mindset, you're the owner of the work that you put in to grow your distribution. You have a miniature business within that agency owner's business. Take ownership of that portion of it, right? You own those commissions to that extent. Take ownership of your responsibility within that to grow that, and feel that ownership, right? Because if you own it, you're going to have more responsibility to it. You're going to have more attachment to it. You're going to have more desire to really watch it grow when you believe, right, that it's your responsibility to take care of it. This also goes with execution on pretty much anything. And I'm going to say anything from the smallest level of taking out the trash to the largest levels of just eating the frog. If you know the eat the frog quote from Brian Tracy, it basically means to whatever that thing is that's on your desk that you really don't want to do, the big, fat, heavy, ugly object, eat it and get it out of the way first. That is part of assuming ownership or assuming responsibility, right? If you see something needs to be done, take ownership and do it. Right. And this goes back to me. I remember me being a kid, like when I came home and I saw that the trash needed to be taken out, take it out. And part of that, yes, was because I also knew that I would probably get told later, like, hey, why didn't you take out the trash? You know, what are you doing? You're sitting around all day, kind of lackadaisical, right? Certainly there was some of that. But I had to understand hey, that was one of my responsibilities, was to make sure that if I created any trash or any disarray in the house, I also had to take responsibility in cleaning up my damn self. So when you see something that needs to be done, just do it. Do it. Take responsibility for it and take ownership of it and do it. Number 2, be informed. Be informed of what is going on around you, what your options are. Don't be uninformed. And I know in today's hyper fast information world or world of information that there's information, there's disinformation. It can be extremely difficult. There's misinformation purposely. It can be very difficult to make sure that you're being informed the right way. So, moderate what you're taking in to be informed of, and make sure that you're being informed of the things that can help you achieve number 1, assuming responsibility. If you have to, start there and then move forward, but be informed of what you got. Number 3 is the biggest one, in my opinion. And a lot of this, when I talked to my group about it, I was using our 8 steps of success that we have in the room. It's our 8 daily habits to success that we believe. And the 4 things I'm talking about here are all over that board as well. And I kept kind of relating it back. I can't necessarily do that with you guys, but we were doing it with the team. But number 3 is to know where you're going. Know where you're going, man. So, think about this from the level of being a little kid and go back to my description of myself as a latchkey kid. I had to, number 1, assume the responsibility that I was in charge to get myself out of bed, to get to the bus stop on time, right? To have my books with me, to arrive to class on time, take care of all that, get back on the bus, ride the bus home, go home, be responsible, do my work, whatever I had to do before I could enjoy myself in some ways, right? So I had to also be informed. I had to know when the bus stop came, right? I had to know what was going on around me so that I could assume responsibility and deliver on what I was responsible for. And then number 3, I had to know where I was going, man. I had to know where the bus stop was. I had to know where the school was. I had to know, right? That's a very micro surface level. But if we take that much bigger, like in your business, do you know where you're going? For yourself, do you know where you're going? Do you have any goals? Do you have any direction? Do you have a compass, moral compass, development compass, professional compass, personal, whatever it is? Do you know where you're going? Because if you don't know where you're going, well, it's kind of hard to do the next thing with number 4, which is make your own decisions. So you have to have those 4 things in place. You have to assume responsibility of yourself, of your opportunity. You have to take ownership of it, right? Make it you. It's part of you. It's yours. Be informed about what you need to carry it forward. Number 3, know where you're going. Where are you trying to take it? What is the destination? And then make your own decision. Or the 4th one, make your own decisions. Don't let people tell you where to go, what to do. Take some advice, listen to it. That's part of being informed. And then I'll go back to a Bruce Lee quote on that, like, absorb it all, but take and apply what is useful to you and discard everything else, right? Be objective enough to open and listen to it all. Take what is useful to you, apply it, and disregard the rest. That's probably the best when it comes to being informed. But yes, you got to make your own decisions, man. And that was me. I had to make my own decision on getting up, going to school, doing my thing, etc. If we go back to that little Gen X kid and we look at it from that level. But it applies everywhere. And then the final note is that ultimately what you want is chaos. And you should not be afraid of chaos as you're moving through your process, right? As you're taking responsibility, you're informing yourself, you have your destination in mind, and you're making decisions and executing on the process. It's going to be chaotic, and you should embrace that chaos and want that, because out of chaos comes order. Out of chaos comes order. And I can 100% vouch for that, because the last, what is it now, 10 and 12, the last 22 months that I have been full-time behind this desk at Avila, it has been a big chunk of it. A big chunk of it has been ridiculously chaotic. And I talked about this recently on a little bit on an interview that I did with Andrew Lee. If you see that interview with Andrew Lee, take it with a grain of salt. We were having some fun that day. Maybe 2 a.m. Tony came out a little bit. But anyway, take that chaos. I remember when I first got here, I realized that, hey, there was some changes. There was some adaptations that I immediately needed to put into play to carry us to the next spot, right? So I already kind of knew where we were going. But it was chaotic, man. I had to revamp all of our contracts. I had to revamp the whole company on paper, new bank accounts. And then I had to get all the contracts moved over. I had to go back and make sure all the old commissions were assigned over and transferred over, all into the new bank account. I didn't want stuff in multiple areas. I had to, that took a while. That was chaotic. And when you've got, I think at the time we did that with probably about 15 different insurance companies that we had business with, some of them pretty damn sizable books, some of them personal books that I had written a while back, some of them certainly under the old agency, and then now the new agency that we've got. So that was extremely chaotic. Going through that, now it created order, because now I've got everything in one place. It's all being reported to the same bank, the same care, the same insurance agency. It's under the same paper, same tax ID, right? Going through that chaotic process also created chaos within my financials and my taxes, right? And while I was pretty good at filing taxes under one tax ID number or two, my personal and then an EIN number, it started to get complicated when I had 5 different EIN numbers, some that I was a partnership owner, some that I wasn't, et cetera, plus my personal, plus my agency and the previous agency's money that was still moving over, and trying to get everything like that was super chaos. And what I do, I just hired somebody, find a good CPA that can take this over for me, take that chaos and turn it into order. Same thing with my internet and cybersecurity systems, my IT, right? I'm not an IT guy. I took all that chaos that I had kind of created over the last 18, 20 months, gave it to a professional. They took it and made it order. And the whole purpose of that and creating that order is so that we can create new chaos through growth above that, right? We got to create that foundation. So that's kind of where we're headed. And then the very, very final thing that I put in our talk that was just a note was something that I used to have this on my mirror in my bathroom, pardon me. But it said, it was a piece where you probably have seen the poem Invictus. I can't remember the author that wrote the poem, but it's been quoted in a couple of pretty big movies. Nelson Mandela movie, there's a couple other ones that it's been quoted in. But if I remember correctly, the very first 2 lines in the movie, or in the poem, and I might be off on that, there might be different ones. But I had these 2 lines written on my mirror for several years to help me get to a certain destination that I needed to get to. And it really encompasses self-reliance, I believe, in the best capacity. And it says, I am the captain of this ship, and I am the master of my fate. And I think with those 2 lines, if you go back to the 4 things I told you, assume responsibility, be informed, know where you're going, and then finally make your own decisions. You can kind of see them summed up in that, because if you can get that stuff down, man, it will go right back to the very first thing I said. You will never be able to lead anyone if you can't first lead yourself. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I see Ken Burks tuned in. Thanks for the comments, brother. I appreciate you guys. Have an awesome Tuesday. And I am going back over here to work with my agents. We got an agent testing this week, and super excited to get her up and running. Have an awesome Tuesday. Have an awesome week. We will see you next week for Tuesday training. Adios.